Hello my fellow riders, today we're going to talk about how to tension your chain and why you should tension your chain. So as you can see, we're standing next to the LXR 125cc Euro 4 motorbike, and it is a bit of a wreck. The person who owns this bike doesn't really keep good enough care of it, so it's got scratches all over it. Things are starting to go rusty because it hasn't been cleaned in some time, and the main thing that you're going to see is the chain is actually off. The customer come to do a service after 2,000 miles, and on the way here his chain actually fell off. Now with this sort of thing, he was quite lucky because it didn't actually get caught in the rear sprocket and stop his wheel. It just made it so it's free flowing. But this is a very easily preventable thing. So with a chain, you should never be able to put it on without loosening off your wheel. And obviously I just did. Another thing is, comment below how many PSI you think is in this tyre. I reckon it's about 2, but we'll check that in a minute. So things you'll need for this job is two 14mm spanners, two 24mm spanners, sorry, one 13mm spanner, and a torque wrench set to 54 Newton meters of torque. Unless you haven't got one, then you just got to do it really, really tight. So this is going to take a little bit of effort for you to be able to do it, but if you own a bike, you should know how to do this. So to undo it, you push it down anti-clockwise on one side, and the other side is just to hold the bolt. Undo it until it's fairly loose but not all the way. Release the rear retaining bolt, which on these ones are going to be kind of stiff because he hasn't undone it for such a long time. So just undo it a couple of turns so that you can get to the screwing in bolt and adjust the chain. So what the best thing to do is to adjust it half a turn this side, half a turn that side, and what you're looking for is up to 20 mils worth of play. Obviously that's about 4 inches. So all of this is going to be really, really tight. Loosen it off a little bit more. So that's 2 turns, 2 half turns. And check. Another 2 that side. This is a lot out. If you adjust yours every month or so, you shouldn't have this problem, but always check it. All you have to do is kick under there and you'll be able to tell whether it's taut or not. So another half turn, and that's about where it's supposed to be. Now sometimes chains develop a tight spot, so the best thing to do is check it, move it, just make sure there isn't a tight spot there somewhere. So I'm going to be using chain lube, white grease on this. You can use chain lube, red grease, whatever, just make sure you put something on it. Another good tip as well is if you're doing a service you can empty out the oil out of the engine, take the chain off and clean it off in the engine oil, the waste engine oil, before you chuck it away. Get all that grip and grime off of it so that the chain will last longer. So spray on the outside, spray on the inside, and spray down. Now you can get a cheap toothbrush, they're at a couple of pound. It is quite useful to have one of these paddock stands as well, just so that it makes it a lot easier to do the work. Gets that back wheel off the floor, makes the bike stable, because these ones don't have a centre stand. So tighten it up with your hand until it's fairly tight with the tools. And if you've got a torque wrench, it needs to be 54 Newton meters of torque. That click shows that it's at 54. Remember to tighten up the retaining bolts. I'm going to put some grease on there as well. Now it's time to find out how many PSI is in the tyre. While you're doing your chain, you might as well always check your tyre pressures. You need to check your tyre pressures at least every other week, and they should be at 32 PSI. And on the gauge it is showing nothing. I imagine this bike hasn't had any sort of tools chucking at it for at least a year. The front one has a little bit more in it, which is 20 PSI, still low. Let's talk about how often this should be done. So you should check it really every time you go out for a ride. Just give it a little bit of a kick, just with your foot, a light tap, and you'll be able to see how far it is. If you let it get to as bad as it was before, then potentially it can come off, get trapped in your rear wheel, and it'll chuck you off. And also, if you do it too tight so that it's like a banjo, potentially it could snap. Usually what happens is it will snap, it will just come off. Potentially it could get caught in your back wheel, but it will probably smash your casing as well on your front of your engine. So again, all your oil could come out of your front, out of the engine, and you would also fall off. Now, people will say that there's loads of issues with Chinese motorbikes and that they're not very reliable and all this sort of stuff. Most of the time, Chinese bikes aren't reliable because people don't get them serviced. People don't do things like checking their chain tension, tyre pressure. I'm not saying everybody, but it is quite a lot of people don't. And as I said previously in some of my other videos, we've got people working at Cheap Bikes for us that have worked at Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Harley Davidson, all those sort of things. And the failure rate on one of their bikes is pretty much the same as on a Chinese bike. Lots of people are going to say that I'm wrong, but I'm talking from experience and from other people's experience. It's just that the Chinese and the Japanese market, the Japanese are a little bit better at hiding it. So thank you for watching my video. I hope it has helped you on maintaining your vehicle. These are just simple steps that take 10 minutes that can potentially save your life. So hit the thumbs up, thumbs down if you liked it. Comment below if you've got anything to say. Subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to stay updated to all of my latest content. But as always, ride safe.